we're back. Welcome to Relationshipping. I'm your host, LaDonna Raeh, and
Hey, it's me, Lorenzo T. Hughes. What's up, y'all?
that's what I'm talking
I'm
about. So,
back.
look, we those of you that have been watched our shows before, it's been a while. We took a little break, okay? And speaking of break, Lorenzo's been breaking a leg, or do you only say that in theater?
Well, you can use it universally. You'll hear it in not only just in theater, but also on the screen as well.
Okay, so last week, I don't want to act like that didn't happen, but before I get to what happened last week, relationshipping is all about relationshipping. So we've separated the two words that as we've explained before, because it's not just about intimate relationships, it's about all kinds of relationships. How you relate to your parents, how you relate to the community, how you relate to coworkers, how you relate to your significant other. How do you relate to your ex significant other or your children? Yeah, I know.
X.
I know.
Wow.
I need therapy. Okay, I'm just gonna admit it. So, but with this show, it has been therapeutic to discuss in front of you guys. So I just want to make sure that you know you can call in live. We have a phone number that is waiting for you. That's 312-357-5141. And that goes out to all of you. Don't be ashamed. Don't be scared. You can comment live on our Facebook Live and on YouTube. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and share the show. Comments, comments, comments. Even if you can't get them in on the calls, you can put your comments in the live.
Yeah, and definitely share the show. Share the show.
Yeah, why not? So back to a spectacular week last week. Now I know some people are just coming off of Easter with the dressing and everything, but last Wednesday you had your first television debut on NBC Chicago Fire season
Yes.
13, episode 18, called Postmortem.
Yes.
Man, tell us about it.
Hey, look, and if you haven't seen it, you can still catch it. You can go on Peacock and I believe Amazon as well.
It's on YouTube. I found it
Listen,
everywhere.
look, you asked the question, how was it? It was. If I was to say it was anything, it was a relief. If anybody out there has that's an actor or an actress, you understand the work that you put in auditioning and the emotional roller coaster you go through, just wondering why you didn't book the role, even though you've poured your heart out in these auditions, these self tapes, and you're submitting all the self tapes, and you killing it. You go back and look at the replay of the self tape, and
Yeah.
you see and feel the realism, and you don't get the role. My advice is to just to stay at it and wait for that role that fits you comes up, because it comes a time where the role is actually you. And I would say just stay at it, keep going at it, because I wanted to give up. I felt like I was doing my agent, a disservice. She was getting me in the door with the casting directors casting. They were casting roles for Chicago PD, Chicago Med, Chicago Fire, and I'm reading, and I wasn't booking anything. So yeah, I felt like I had this feeling of guilt, this feeling of failure, and all these other different feelings. But
Well, let me dive in
yeah, go ahead.
because take us back to the audition. So you get this audition, it comes across your desk or however it comes.
Mm.
And what was your first thought? How did you prepare for this audition?
There was no preparing for it. I had spoke. I've taken classes and workshops that consist of casting directors. And I believe the casting director, it might have been, it might have been Msada Nia. She's a big time Hollywood casting director. And I think I recall her saying something, her and a couple other casting directors saying, you want to try to get your self tape in like in the top 10 submissions. And before that, I was getting in like right before the deadline. And the reason why you don't want to do that, because some of these networks, they have deadlines.
Now
And
I'm gonna interrupt you because I'm going back to the actual audition. I saw your audition tape,
hmm
and you literally, because you went for District Deputy Chief
yeah.
Markison. And so, what type of imagination did it take to dress the part, become the part? Because the audition was phenomenal. So,
Well,
what went into the creativity of looking the part?
what you have to do, if you have to choose the shows that you want to be a part of. I'm more of a Chicago PD fan, and probably, yeah, and but I'm familiar with the shows here in Chicago. So with Chicago Fire, because I don't watch it that often, but I do watch it. I had to go back and watch it and look at the pacing, and look at how they dress. So what I did was I just threw on a white button-up shirt. I got my winter coat, folded the hood in so that it looked
I
like a
saw
fire
that.
jacket, like it looked like a fire coat and everything. And you look at your sides, or you look at your script, and you read the backstory as much as they've given you, and you say, okay, I'm at a fire. So if there's a house on fire, intensity is high. So I'm trying to develop this character of Deputy District Chief Markison.
Yeah.
So I figure if I'm a deputy district chief, that means I'm somebody at this point, and I'm showing up on the scene. And so I had to develop that character in a short amount of time, and I had to develop that pacing. So I looked at the show, went through YouTube and all this, and started looking at the pacing of the chiefs that are on the Firehouse 51, to see how the pacing went, how the relationships were, and I did my best to match that type of pacing. So
It was phenomenal.
yeah,
And so when you submitted the self tape
yeah. Mm.
and you got the call, how was it? Was it an urgent? Because from what you shared, it was an urgent. It was an urgency to work specifically with you.
You know, um, you never stop learning and experiencing new things in this industry. Like my agent, she would call me. I'm with Encore Talent here in Chicago, and sometimes I might get a call at 10 o'clock, 11 o'clock at night. Well, she called me. I think it was probably about 6 or 7 in the morning. Letting me know that I got the book the role. Um, but the unfortunate part was when she told me that I booked the role and what date I was shooting, I had conflicts.
Because
And
you had someone pass away in your family.
I had deaths going on. I had
Mhm.
a stage play that was going on, and because it was my first television project that I booked, it's like you can't pass it up. It's like you can't, do that. So
Mhm.
I, I, my first
You were
intention was to
torn.
make some stuff up.
Yeah.
I would, because it's early in the morning. I'm waking up out of bed. So you got to try to make accommodations and make choices. And when you've been struggling to kick that door open, you just got to make a sacrifice. The unfortunate thing about being in this industry is you're going to miss out on some things.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to, when you're in this business and there's contracts involved, there's money circulating, and there's expectations put upon you, you got to miss out on life. You're going to have
Wow.
to miss out on it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of different backstories,
Mm,
and I can see that happening because production does not wait for no
it
one.
does not.
Wow. So after getting the call that you got the role and you knew you had to juggle some things, and you went for, obviously you had a fitting because they had a full wardrobe. Didn't
Right.
you get something you had never gotten before?
It the whole experience, because it was so new, it was exciting. To have your own trailer, to have people bringing you food, water, all your primary job is
Your
to
lines.
is to develop that character, to make that character stand out, or do what it does, on that screen. So it was it was somewhat like a dream come true. At the same time, it was work, but it was like a dream, dream come true. So the goal now is to try to keep that ball rolling. Now that I got my foot in the door,
Mm-hmm.
it's learning a different set of marketing strategies
Mm-hmm.
at this point.
Mm-hmm. Well, we want to say congratulations to you.
Thank you.
Basically, I want to make sure everybody goes to your social media. If you look up Lorenzo T. Hughes, you'll see that they have already added him on IMDb.
Yes.
Your pictures are on your Facebook where you're in character. I was trying to upload your self tape, but it won't allow me to because the file is too
Yeah.
big.
Once I get the reel together, you guys, I'll put it together for you, and it'll be on display so everybody can take a look at it if you haven't seen it.
There you have it. And along after see so I want to move forward. Once you've gotten the call, you've done your part, you met some cool people on the set. Now they give you an air date a month in advance. What do you do with that?
You start doing your marketing at this point so people can come out and support you. You can always do, a screen party, for people to come out and celebrate your accomplishment. But you want
What I'm getting to is how did it feel seeing yourself on the
For
screen?
me, it's always funny. I laugh when I watch myself, but I'm very critical of my work. And when I say critical, is like I embrace the Stanislavski style of acting and teaching of acting. So when I look at my work, I'm very critical of how realistic and convincing I look on work. Do I look believable while I'm on the set? Is my relationship not only with the actors that I'm working with, but is my relationship with the props and with the scene realistic? Like if you ever watch sometimes like with people, you can watch this on Tubi. Some of these Tubi movies, like people don't have a relationship with the scene. Like a couple fall over and they won't acknowledge it. Just like weird stuff
I
that
think that the scene doesn't have a
it,
relationship with the
it right,
scene.
that
You got
yeah.
people blinking while they're dead.
Oh
I'm
my goodness,
confused.
it's unbelievable. So I try to my biggest criticism for myself on stage or on the screen is, am I believable when I watch myself? If I don't believe me, if I don't believe that I am in the situation that I'm in or the emotions that I'm expressing are real, then I'm upset. I feel like I failed at my job if I'm not believable.
Well, that is a beautiful rendition. I'm so proud of you. We are
Mm.
all proud of you because we can kind of claim you. We know that you came from Nebraska. Obviously, you came from Omaha, Nebraska. Then you went to
By way of
Kansas
Kansas
City.
City,
Yep,
yes,
by way of
yes.
Kansas City, Missouri. And then you came home to us here in Chicago because
Yes.
Chicago is the bomb.com. And it's so awesome to see all of these franchises break out in Chicago. You got Chicago Fire, Chicago PD, and Chicago Med. And you have experience with all three because of the crossover
Oh yeah.
episode. And now you get this co-star role, which we are excited to see come back, guys. Make sure you look for I was going to say
Deputy
detective.
District Chief Marcuson.
Right, him, that guy. He's
Yes.
that guy. Okay, and what else happened that week? Do you remember?
That week, I'm still on stage with Fall from Royalty
Let me
at
let me
APC
let me
Theater.
slide in because that wasn't there something that happened Friday? I mean, I know
What, this week?
last week, we had
Oh,
Wednesday and then there was Friday.
yes, yes. Yeah.
Let's
But
start over. I just wanted to be organic. So, you had your big, huge debut, and then there was a little stage play that happened on Friday.
absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely. The Empty Tomb was involved in that stage production that was at Destiny Changers Church, Fellowship Church, and it was an amazing production. And I say it was an amazing production. This is coming from a person that I have a background just in professional theater, but to see people take on tasks that they're not familiar with and do a good job at it, you got to say it was a good production. Even from the production crew to the cast itself, the way it was put together. It was directed by Cynthia Morrow. She did an awesome job. Had a chance to meet and work with her. They hired me to do the set, to build the set. It was the first time that I independently built a theater set. And because I have a background just in I don't want to really, I guess you can say carpentry, building houses. And then I've been in my background in theater. I've seen enough flats and stage designs where I was like, I know I can. I said, yeah, I can do it. And like I said, I'm the type of person that I will refuse to say that I can't do something. So I said, yes, I can do it, which I bit off maybe a little bit more than I can chew. Because in my mind, I thought I could finish the job a lot quicker than what I expected. So I think it took me like three days to build the whole tomb, Jesus tomb.
Well, those of you that are just tuning in, this is the Relationshipping Show with Lorenzo T. Hughes, myself, LaDonna Raeh. I was also in the play. My character had a 7 to 10 minute monologue where I played Mary Magdalene. It was actually my first time doing a monologue that long, but it was quite the character. I've never played someone who was on the verge of crazy. I don't think she was on the verge. I think she was there. But I've been introduced to just method acting, and sometimes those types of characters or scripts can really pull you in. And so there were some times when I felt the need to get prepared for this particular character, and I struggled with the movement because at rehearsal, I felt like after the direction of Cynthia Morrow, I needed to be crazier. So it kind of threw me off because it's like, wait, what do I say next? But thankfully that night we had 2 shows. One was at 12 p.m. and one was at 7. And everyone in the show was amazing. Cynthia was so grateful that everyone had pulled together, and we had our props manager, we had obviously the church, and we had people that were in charge of sound. I mean, just big shout out to everyone. But it was so ironic that we both had such an amazing week working in the industry of the arts. So I thank everyone that came out. It was so good to see those that, purchased tickets, and thanks for the pat on the back, people, because I truly needed it. It was quite
that 10-minute monologue.
Well, it was almost 10 minutes, but yeah.
You talking for a long time. Woo.
Yeah. Well,
woo, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I talked for a long time anyway, but so I felt right at home. And guys, don't forget, you can call us at 312-357-5141. And big shout out, as you can see on my Facebook page, I gave a big shout out to Lorenzo T. Hughes for doing the set. It looked absolutely amazing. And thank you so much for making the empty tomb look even that much more incredible. So speaking of incredible, goodness gracious, there's some incredible news spewing out there. I covered it just a couple of days ago. I feel like was it yesterday? It just feels like it could be one day can roll into the next, where we were talking about on WVON the Karmello Anthony and stabbing of Austin Metcalf,
Metcalf,
at a middle school track meet. Now, I was under the impression that this is what we've heard. Now, we've listened to what the witnesses have said, what they've given us information on, but the tragic story is just keeps unfolding, because you've got the Black community and caucus fighting for almost the fairness of treatment for Karmello Anthony. And then you've got the family of Austin Metcalf, who, and I feel weird saying this, who was white. So I don't like making this a black and white issue, even though America has made it a black and white issue. But I'll get through the story and then I'll give you my opinion. this is a story about I guess he's 14 or 15. I feel like he was a little bit older than that.
I
But
think
these two teenagers, I think Austin was 17 and he was
right,
16. Was that what it
right.
was?
I think he was
And
17.
Carmelo Anthony, who was named after Carmelo Anthony, no relationship though, had everything going for himself. He was an athlete. Obviously he was still in school. He was on the trajectory of going to college and still being an athlete. Austin Metcalf, the same. They said that he was a honor student on the National Honor Society with a 4.0, and they got into a disagreement that ended up with Carmelo Anthony stabbing him directly into the heart because, and here's what we've heard, it was raining outside. Carmelo Anthony, who is black, went under the tent of Austin Metcalf and his brother, who was his twin brother, and some other students because it was raining and they were seeking shelter. But because there was some type of, I'm hearing there was bad blood. At first I heard there was no bad blood. They didn't know each other. And now they're saying it was, then they said it was self-defense. And all of this has spewed from the idea that while he was under the tent, he was told or pushed or shoved by Austin Metcalf. And the young man, Carmelo Anthony, dared him by saying, push me or put your hands on me, touch me again. I want to quote this: touch me again and see what happens. And Carmelo Anthony had his backpack or his duffel bag, whatever he had, and inside of it was a knife. And obviously a very sharp one and very sturdy one, because to go through that chest cavity into the heart and just instantly, in one stab, he had stabbed Austin Metcalf in the blink of an eye. Now they say that because he said, touch me again and see what happens, and the boy pushed him or nudged him or whatever it was, that our black, we say our baby, they say our baby on the microphone, our baby suddenly, okay? And I'm saying this, look, you can send all hate mail to Lorenzo because
Oh
I'm
my
not going to
goodness.
read it. But they're saying this because he took another life, and they're saying there's stand your ground laws in Texas. And there are. And my question is, but is this a black and white issue? And where did he get the knife? What, you know what I'm saying? So this was a life altering mistake. And so this is what we have been presented with. We weren't there. We're basing this off of what the witnesses have said and what the outcome has been. And Austin Metcalf unfortunately lost his life that day. And I, as a mother, I'll tell you what I think after Lorenzo chimes in, but I can't see this as a black and white issue in totality. But I'll tell you why I said that in just a second.
Um, I agree with you when you say it's not, a black and white issue. I think where we make the mistake, black and white make mistakes, is we allow media to control the narrative. When you go in and you try to look for certain details in the story, there's certain details that you're not going to find it. And whenever you allow an institution or a system to control the narrative, you have to question that system that you're getting your information from. So I think that's where we're going to run into this whole firestorm of race being implemented, um, being fueled in this whole conversation. Is you're going to see it built up and stirred up and mixed up by the media, not only television and radio media, but also your social media outlets. So you're going to see this really being stirred up by media.
Yeah, it's already being stirred up by media because you've got black media and individuals saying that he should be looked at as a youth that was defending himself. It was self defense. And I'm going to tell you why I don't see this. What is it about this case that I don't see that's black and white except for what has happened? It's not a
Well,
black or white issue to me because when it comes to a child being killed, a child is dead. That child had parents, family, siblings, community, and they're gone. And we've got Karmello Anthony, who was black. He has parents, family, community, friends, and he made a split decision to take someone's life after telling them and warning them, touch me again and see what happens. Now, for me, if I'm telling, it kind of reminds me of the I wish a would, okay? I wish a ninja would. Because I remember going to the Regal Theater here in Chicago many years ago when it was open. And there was one seat that was always reserved for Mayor Harold Washington, the late, great Mayor Harold Washington. And it was actually, there was a beautifully embroidered fabric that indicated that that was his seat and it was not to be sat in. But I remember having a conversation back then with someone saying, because we were piling in to see a concert. And because it was numbered seating based on your tickets, I remember this person saying, I wish a ninja would take my seat. And in my head, I felt like asking, well, then what would you do if they took your seat? And now I never got a straight answer from them, but the anger in their face, no one had even taken their seat. They had already made it up in their mind that they were going to act in a possibly act in a violent way. You could see it in the body language.
And that's where the term intent,
Right.
comes. I refuse to believe that Mr. Anthony Karmello intended on taking the life of the Mr. Metcalf. I don't think that was the intention. And you might debate that by saying, well, he used a weapon or whatever. And this is coming from someone who has been in my share of fist fights. And if you've ever been in a fist fight, your intention or expectation is not for the person to die, or to pass away. That's not your intent. Your intent is to let this person know their boundaries when dealing with you. I gave you a warning, or I gave you 2 warnings. Now this is what you asked for. And this is going to teach you not to do this again, or to treat me in this fashion or in that manner that you were treating me in. I don't think in the average person's right mind, I don't think their intent is to take another person's life. I don't think that's the intent. When you look at his face, you can see it in his face. He don't have the look of intentional homicide, but he has the look as if, man, this was not my intent. Now, if it was intentional, I've seen mugshots where a person was like, yeah, I did it. Okay. And that's intentional. He doesn't have that look of intent. Like, okay, he shouldn't have put his hands on me. So there's a lot in this story. There's a lot to unpack.
Let me just say this. Unless they were peeling potatoes or, I don't know, cutting up hot dogs for pork and beans or camping overnight, I can't see why that knife was even an option.
Look, I carried weapons to school. I've done it.
I'm still gonna. That's great that you carried weapons to school, but to tell someone, touch me one more time and see what happens. First of all, you were under their tent. You were under their tent. You could have removed yourself.
He should have.
Was the rain that toxic that you had to stay under that tent?
And that's why I say that.
Well, I'm not
there's
done.
A lot to unpack.
I have to get to the end of this.
Go ahead.
if I go under a tent of a supposed enemy, because there are reports that this young man had been bullying him or, obviously bothering him up to this point. But if somebody's bothering me, I've seen the activities on individuals that stay away from people who irritate them or who bother them or who target them. Why would I put myself in harm's way intentionally so that I can prove a point? You bring a knife to kill, not to, what are you gonna stab and we go back to school Monday morning? No, that is a weapon. A pen can be a weapon. A key can be a weapon. It's all in your intention of your intent in using it. But I'm not gonna put myself into harm's way. It's like, forgive me if
You're
I'm
not gonna
offending
do it.
anybody. If I'm offending anybody, does an alcoholic put himself in the bar where they're asking you what you're drinking? Okay. Or do they stay away from the bar? You see what I'm saying? You know that there's a possibility that you will take a drink. You know there's a possibility you will stab somebody with this knife. If you're asking them, touch me again and see what happens. He's already in his mind, he can see what's happening. And he aimed at what was going to happen. Ready, aim, fire. I can't be on the soft side of this. But what is Roland Martin saying?
Well, being someone that has been bullied. I think about ninth grade, I put myself in the way of my bullies because I went after them. I had, developed a decent enough skill to defend myself at that point, ninth grade. For those of you that may know me that I grew up with and went to school with, I think that's my sophomore year. I probably had my red belt in Chinese kickboxing, and had won maybe a handful of tournaments. And that's when I put myself. You say who puts themselves in harm's way? I guess me. I'm the only one in the world that would do that. But
what was your weapon of choice?
Many of us have gone after bullies, and we've done it.
What was your way of going after them?
To prove a point.
But what? No, I said not why. I said
anymore.
what? What was your way of going after them?
I put myself in harm's way when
were you intending on fighting them or stabbing them?
Fighting them.
Okay, there's a difference because I can say, touch me again and see what happens. And now I'm ready to steal on you. That's different because now we're even. We're even with power there. But he had an unfair advantage.
What I'm saying is when this is coming from experience. I'm not saying that he had been bullied by this guy, but if you have been bullied and you've been fed up with bullying, what we see in society today, either they're committing suicide or they're committing homicide when they get fed up. When those people who are being bullied are fed up, you can look the statistics up. They're either committing homicide or suicide. Yes, he could have left the tent, but not everyone thinks the way you think. I didn't think the way you think. Once I knew I was in a position to defend myself, then it was time, to go prove that, okay, you cannot bully me anymore.
So are our young people turning into cowards that hide behind weapons? Do they go and get guns? Do they go and get knives? Do they go and get assault rifles? You know what I'm saying? Do they go and get naked pictures of you and post them? I mean, these are cowardly moves because when we were coming up, to fight was to fight. Mm-hmm. It was one-on-one, and if more than one person jumped in, then your homies pulled back the extra individual. Because that would be an unfair advantage. Now it's like what even the play you were in, one of the lines said, we don't have to worry about taking down multiple men that are stronger than us. We can just pull guns. It's the same thought process.
And it ain't just children doing that. You learn your habits from adults. guns just don't pop up in someone's head. You have to be introduced to,
Knives too, because he
firearms
came from a
and
two-parent
knives.
home that
Well,
worked
knives
really
been
hard.
around. Knives been around for generations.
I know,
It
but
could be a kitchen knife, a shank. It could be anything. The stuff I carried were concealed things such as throwing knives, throwing spikes, needles, and stuff like that. They
well,
were
then it would
very
be a concealed
concealable.
weapon.
They were very concealed. His was concealed. He didn't have it open.
It
He
was
didn't have it on his
concealed
hip.
until he pulled it out.
That's with any weapon. Until you pull it out, it's not concealed anymore. It could be a like I said, it could be a spike or a shank or a throwing star. It's concealed until you pull it out.
Well, let me just slide in with Roland Martin has been vocal about the Karmello Anthony case.
Mm-hmm.
He's highlighted concerns over racial bias in media coverage and the broader implications for Black youth in the justice system. In a recent segment in his show, it's called Roland Martin Unfiltered. He literally criticized the portrayal of Karmello Anthony in the media. He basically contrasted it with how similar cases involving white defendants are handled. Now, I think we're looking at and focusing on the wrong thing. Roland Martin, actually, I want to say he went on to say that while Karmello, being 17, a Black teenager, is being charged with murder and depicted negatively, other cases involving white teens, such as Kyle Rittenhouse. Now, we remember Kyle Rittenhouse. Mm-hmm. He was the young man that went to Wisconsin and literally had an assault rifle and shot up some people. Okay? But he received more sympathetic media coverage and public support. Now, this goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's not a black and white issue in totality, but the black and white issue that it is that we can't test the system. If I know that the system is stacked against me, I should not test the system. And it's unfair, yes. Why should I have to wear my seatbelt and not run a light and get pulled over and not end up going home because I'm Black? Well, because you're Black. And until that changes, put your seatbelt on, don't run the light, and put your two hands on the wheel so you can get home. In this case, you don't pull out a knife. The boy pushes you. You either push him back, kick his ass, or walk away. That's it.
Who taught Karmello that?
I don't think anyone knows who taught Karmello anything except his mother and father. His mother and father lived in the home. They were still together. They lived in a very middle class neighborhood. They were both working parents. He went to a good school. It's like there is no formula that equals a successful child that doesn't go through trauma or doesn't make makes the right decisions. There's no formula for that.
Was it said trauma, right?
I said trauma. Okay. Absolutely. All children have trauma. I don't care if they grew up on the house on Prairie. They grew up with trauma.
All kids have trauma.
They do.
So how do all kids respond when they deal with trauma?
Well, they respond.
Do they respond the same or do they respond differently?
Well, that's a rhetorical. They respond differently because they're different.
Then you can't discriminate against Karmello the way he responded, the way he dealt with his trauma. That's the way he dealt with it.
Okay.
It's not to say it's right, but that if he suffered from trauma, that's how he dealt with it.
We don't know that he suffered from trauma or if it was documented that he suffered from trauma. I am just saying that all kids have some type of trauma. Now, in this case, did he go too far with the trauma or did he go too far with his reaction? That is the situation. That's what's going on in Chicago. If you look at how all of these shootings are taking place and they're taking place by the hands of 11 and 12-year-olds, these are people that have, emotional disparities. And because of that, they're not able to think it through as to what will happen in case I do this. And because of that, it has caused our young people to react and overreact time and time again.
And that's because a past trauma that they've dealt with?
I think
or
that
have gone through?
Okay, I can't say that a child has
Or is
gone
because or is it
through.
because of all the church and spiritual leadership that they've been exposed to?
Well, this sounds very, very obvious. Okay, so our children are being presented with demonic ways of handling things. Okay, but we were presented in a different way. They're presented in a real time way. Our stuff had to catch up with us. We might have escaped it. We might have ducked from it. But their stuff is right in their hands. Anything you see on social media, and I say social because people, social media. Social media is how our young people, black or white, Chinese, Mexican, Jewish, whatever, they all have a device in their hands. And those devices are connected to the internet, the World Wide Web, and those apps that they have downloaded and lied about their age or not. They have what's called algorithms, and those algorithms know who your kid is more than you do. They know what your kid is searching for, looking at, how long they're staring at it, making comments about it. They know all of those things more than you do. Hell, more than they do. Look at the screen time. The screen time is not 9 hours a day. It's way more than that. My screen time is 9 hours a day. And that's too much. But everything that they get is getting planted in their psyche. And when it gets planted in their psyche, they retrieve it at some point. It doesn't just go away or dissipate. So while you're teaching them to pray and call on Jesus, social media is telling them to kill, stab, rob, smash and grab, even, I don't want to say the R word, take it. If they don't want to give it to you, take it so that you'll feel empowered. Laugh about it. I could see if Kyle Rittenhouse had kicked the shit out of him. But that wasn't the case. Now I'm not trying to make Kyle Rittenhouse to be not Kyle Rittenhouse. I'm so sorry. Metcalf. Apologies. If he had kicked the shit out of him, I could see him, looking for the next best thing, because now you have kicked me to the point where I may be impaired. I may be in pain. I don't know if I can get up. That's different. But touch me? Like, I used to play Don't Touch Me with my cousin. We were sitting in the back of the car. I was like, don't touch me. Don't touch me. And he would touch me. And now I had to try and slap the back of his hand. But I didn't pull out a knife, a gun, stab him with a pen, pop him upside the head with a brick. I didn't do that. Excessive force. Our children need to understand how to handle their emotions, how to handle. And the other thing is, we don't know if he was bullied or not. Maybe he was, maybe he wasn't. But if he was, there needs to be documentation, parental involvement.
He doesn't necessarily have to be bullied by Austin. When you're bullying is bullying. You get fed up.
I said being bullied. I didn't say by Austin. I said, has he been bullied?
Well, let me change the narrative.
Please.
If he was bullied by Austin or anyone else, it could have been. When you get fed up, like I said, coming from someone who has been bullied, when you get fed up, you're just fed up, and how you handle it at that point, it's you can't put an action on that. You can't put an action on how somebody acts out through pain or through trauma. That's the scary part. And you don't know when, that cup is going to boil over. You don't know. I like I said, I think there's a lot that needs to be unpacked. I think when we talk about this being a black and white issue, I think as a society, we have put together the recipe for that. I think we put together a recipe. When you're black and you have to deal with what may appear to be racist behavior, there's a certain level of tolerance that you do or don't have. I'm guilty of that. There's a certain level of tolerance I do not have for white racism.
And there's a certain level of
And
responsibility that we should have as
and
Black Americans.
and
Don't breeze over that.
I would knock the crap out of somebody with the intent not to, with not having the intent to kill them. But we have seen people who have gotten hit and fell over and died, hit their head on the concrete, hit their head on the wall. Just maybe they had like some type of conditioner that I wasn't aware of, or a person wasn't aware of, and they passed away. That wasn't the intent, but because you acted out in a violent manner, it led to the death of that person. I think when I say that we've created that recipe, is that we have created a wedge or a division between our ability to communicate across racial boundaries, and that has trickled down, created a trickle down effect on our children. Our children are a byproduct of who we are. If you are a gun-toting parent, yeah, many times you're teaching your kids, your value system for firearms. If you are a parent who is a martial artist like myself, there was a trickle down effect that my kids had learned something that had to do with martial arts or boxing or wrestling. They've competed in combat sports to a degree, and my kids have competed in combat sports. That's a byproduct of who I am. So there is a trickle down effect. So now, did his parents carry a knife or whatever? I don't know. Did his parents did he see violence within his household? I don't know. But there's something when you say touch me again and you pull a weapon and you stab somebody, that came from somewhere.
It came from
somewhere.
It came from his backpack.
I'm talking about that action, that thought, that mindset came from somewhere.
And unfortunately, someone's son is gone.
Yes.
He didn't come home that day. Like, the only thing I can be is a mother in this case, because had that been my son, and we have to be well aware and made well aware what kind of backlash this can cause. I understand that we have had protests because of white on black crime or white on black abuse. But what is the backlash of something like this? MAGA's out there having a field day. And their level of tolerance is much lower than ours. My concern is that they will mount up to teach a lesson to the Black community.
And it sounds like that lesson is going to be the lesson that we've always been taught, and we haven't learned it yet. And in my mind, that lesson is sometimes, when you're dealing with inferior thinking people, this black or white, you got to leave them type of people alone. You got to smile and say, you know what? All right, I'm walking away. Superior people can't associate themselves with inferior thinking people. It's just it's like water and grease, or water and oil, trying to mix water and oil together. It just don't mix. And we're not learning that yet. We're just not learning that. When you discover, when you step under a tent, in a bar, in any type of environment where you discover that you have stepped into a group of inferior thinking and behaving people, you have to develop the understanding that you need to get away.
Yeah, just like when we went to the lobby day last year, we walked into a restaurant.
Oh, that restaurant.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
Walked into a restaurant.
You walk right out.
And we look, it seemed like it was something off of the television. Like the music stopped in my head and everyone looked. Enough people looked. And we were like, nah, we're gonna eat somewhere else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I have no problem with leaving any establishment,
Right.
any business. I've left where they've brought water and was going to take my order and everything. And because they treated me like they didn't want us there, just got up and left.
Right.
Just said, hey, we decided we're going to go somewhere else.
Right.
I have no problem.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I have no problem. If you show me that you don't want me there, I'm not filing no charges, pursuing any case. I'm out.
Right.
Just let me know. And I think, we just have, and those are things we just have to pass down to our children. If people show that they don't want a relationship with you, that's okay. Don't force a person to have a relationship with you or to accept you. We gotta stop trying to force our presence upon people. You have to find and put yourself in position to be around people who want to be around you. You got to spend your money with people who want a relationship with you and that want to see you within their establishment. Those people that don't want you in their establishment or that don't want you around them, don't spend your money there. Don't entertain them. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. It's nothing wrong with that. That's okay. You be thankful that they let you know that they don't want you in their presence. I'm thankful for it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's not a good feeling. I know that we spent a lot of time trying to get the approval, appreciation, validation from those that are not like us. Anyone, you know, and
Yeah.
and it after a while it gets to be to the point where we need to understand our own worth because no one is going to treat you better than you treat you. And by you, I mean people that look like you. And that is so important to understand the coalition between the two. I can't expect you to love me more than I love me. All of those things matter. They all matter.
Mm.
So,
And I guess moving forward, this is not a conversation to really even create a division. And I don't want to sound like our counterparts, but I got some friends. Like I said, I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. A lot of white friends that I grew up with,
mm-hmm.
and when I say friends, I mean my white friends. Man, they were in it when we threw hands. When we went, they were there. They didn't do well, but they was in the trenches when we were on the pavement throwing hands, and they were there for you. And so like when I say friends, man, we were loyal to one another. So when I say that I have white friends, they were loyal to my cause, my beliefs. When we were being mistreated, you forgot that they were even white. They were there with the fight, with the argument.
Mm-hmm.
They validated, hey, this was wrong. You treating them different. No, I'm with them. And they were there. So that's what I say when I say that I have white friends. Those are the friends that I grew up with in high school. They were there in the trenches and they fought and stood up for the causes that we had was fighting for as black teenagers at that time. But I guess, moving forward,
Mm-hmm.
one of the things I would like to see, as tragic as this incident is, I believe every situation offers a level or a degree of education, something that we can learn from that incident. And I'm hoping that we can learn a different way of teaching our children how to have relationships with each other, even if we have differences.
Even if you need to de-escalate the situation.
It's okay if you don't want to be my friend. I'm not gonna hate you for it. because we associate with different things. We like different things.
Hold on one second. Can you look at the text? That's why I was pointing to my phone. So you're listening to the Relationshiping Show podcast with Lorenzo T. Hughes and LaDonna Raeh. What I have done is I'm doing a test. I want to patch in my Clubhouse room and see if I can get the two going, but I need someone else to jump in. So go ahead and tell me if you can hear it. Now I want you to speak on your Clubhouse, Lorenzo.
Oh, I can hear you.
No, speak through your phone.
Can you hear me through my phone? Hello, mic check, mic check.
I think you're muted because I didn't bring you up. Let's try that.
Hold on. All right, I'm trying
Invite to speak. All right, now talk to your phone.
Okay, I'm talking in my phone right now. Hold on, let me see if I'm muted.
Yeah, you did, I think.
Okay, I'm not hearing anything.
All right. So I got to work on that.
I definitely hear you though.
Yeah, let me see if I mute this. Can you hear me now?
No, I can't hear you.
Okay. So I would have to leave this on. And I can't hear you.
Mic check, mic check. Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, I think I'm hearing you through the microphone.
Yeah.
All right. So.
But I believe to kind of recap, just kind of close, what I was saying, that we have to become comfortable with not we have to become comfortable with understanding that everyone is not going to be
Our friend.
your friend. Everybody does not have to be your friend, and that's okay. It's just like you can't have a dating relationship with everyone because you're not going to get along with that person. I believe the same thing is with friendships. We can still do business though. We can, if you sell a product that I like, but you don't like me as a friend, but you have a service or a product that I like and I can still buy your product. We don't have to be friends. We could just have a business relationship.
Yeah, but
that doesn't mean we hang out together, but go ahead.
The problem with this whole situation is when you've got two teenagers that see each other differently, even from a different perspective, a different upbringing, and we don't know what their background is on how they view Black individuals, right? Mm-hmm. At the end of the day, how is it, because our burden is much heavier than our counterparts. Mm-hmm. We're Black. Okay? That's what we are labeled as. Now, because of that, Black it means something. Being white means something. Even though we're not actually Black. When I look at you, I don't see the color Black. I see some other color. I'm not Black, I'm brown, but those are colors. But in actuality, in the United States of America, we have to peel back when we look at, and you and I had this conversation, when obviously when the Pledge of Allegiance was created, the Constitution was created, they would rather cut their nose to spite their face. Even universal health care, I asked you to send me that information. Universal health care is not practiced in the United States just because Black people will benefit from it. So if they're already doing that, pulling the rug from under us so that we can marvel at their accomplishments and not be able to benefit from it and not be recognized for our own accomplishments and have some glass ceiling or limitation, no matter how hard we work, then that means that we are not viewed as their equal to them. We're not viewed as their equal to them. But in all actuality, we have to remind even our own community that they came from us. And sometimes the children that you've birthed need to be taught a lesson. Period. But that doesn't mean that our black children should walk around with weapons, daring them to try us. That's when it's not
No.
self-defense.
Like I said, that goes back to, I think we, as a culture, we know white racism. White people know that white racism exists. We've known that white racism and white fear exists. White inferiority exists. Um, and and you we have to understand that when we know that these things exist, and you have these rules and these policies that come out, like, oh, we're going to develop the stand your ground rule or the
Mm-hmm.
stand your ground law, so that these people that think in this ignorant way to defend, they have, so that they can have a defense. um we have to educate ourselves, unfortunately, that we have to stay away from certain types of people. And that means that if you see a tent with a certain type of people that congregating up under it,
That's
then you need to
right.
find another tent.
Pretty much. Or
Go
bring an
somewhere else.
umbrella. Bring an
You know,
umbrella.
you ain't got to prove that you ain't no punk, because otherwise you end up in the situation that we see that we're talking about here. But we really have to choose our friends at this point. And look at a lot of these policies. It's like, it's like how you just mentioned, and you hear this a lot. People talk about it's not the United States of America. Show me how America is united.
Mm.
Show me. It is not the United States of America. This is a brand.
Yeah.
That the United States of America is a brand. It's not actually what you're getting. You're being sold a false narrative.
Mm-hmm.
And we've been sold a false narrative. It's not the United States of America. That's why you see all the borders in this. If it was united, it'd be one huge landmass.
Right.
It wouldn't be divided up into
You live up northwest.
You wouldn't have
east,
the
south.
northern region. You wouldn't have the eastern hemisphere, the western hemisphere, and the Midwest, the north and the south. It's divided. The thinking, the theories, religion, political parties. It is the divided states of America.
Mm-hmm.
It is a false narrative.
Yeah.
And we continue to fall for it all the time. We, even as a culture, we sit here and have this conversation. We go to war
Mm-hmm.
for policies and things that don't have anything to do with us. It's not going to benefit us whatsoever.
Mm.
You look at the people who were thanking for their service, who have fought for white supremacy. When you go back and look at why they invaded certain countries and fought, it had nothing to do with uniting the country, fighting so that you'll have peace when you come back here. When we talk about fighting for freedom, look, this is interesting, and you guys are going to see this after I say this. Correct me if I'm wrong. If you see European culture or European people hijacking Black experiences. And I'm going to give this example since I'm talking about war. Remember when I believe it was George W. Bush that was talking about Iraqi freedom, fighting for Iraqi freedom. We were fighting for freedom. Name me a point in time in history where the freedom of white people has been in jeopardy. Name me a time in history written in any book where white people were not free, where they were enslaved or in some type of captivity, where they were not free. So whenever I hear that narrative, we're fighting for freedom, where has their freedom been under threat or in jeopardy? So we see that false narrative. And then you see, so when you talk about Black people, the first time you hear people fighting for freedom, you heard it from Black people fighting for freedom. Now they're fighting for freedom. Now we're talking about, being discriminated against. Now they're saying they're discriminated against. How?
Mm-hmm.
You're discriminated against because I don't want to be in a relationship with you because you lie to me, you cheat, you murder, and you have a
You
history of being a
stole.
bad business person. So I don't want to do business with you, and that's discriminatory. You've discriminated against me for years. So I say, you know what? Since you have proven to me that you don't want to have a relationship with me, well, then I'm not going to do business with you or shop with you or share anything that my talents and skills. I'm not going to share those with you. Now I'm discriminating against you. So we see this a lot. You see it, in our music and hijack, black culture and black music, all these different things, and put their spin on it, which is unfair. So when you see or hear black people talking about, you know, the, being accused of discriminating against, we just don't want to have a relationship with people that don't want to have a relationship with us now.
Right. I like who likes me. I see the right. Let me see what her name is. The trigger. Hi, Brittany Cotton. How are you?
Hey, Brittany.
Hey, put a message in Clubhouse and let me know how it sounds. Does it sound clear? Or are you getting an echo? This is the first time we've connected Clubhouse to our podcast. And you can always go to our podcast if you go to youtube.com or your YouTube app. Look for LaDonna Raeh Show, and it's spelled just like my name is in a Clubhouse. Oh,
But
she says it's clear. Would
cool.
you mind coming on the stage so that I can test your audio and see if you sound okay? Thank you. She's so sweet. Thank you so much. Let's see if we can hear you. All right, there you go. How are you today? Now, there you go.
I'm I'm doing okay. Can you hear me all right?
Yes, it sounds great. I got it to work. I'm so
Sounds
glad.
good.
And you don't have to stay on stage, but I just really wanted to test that out. And I really appreciate you doing that for us. You are so amazing. How's your day going?
It's going good. I really just want to hear, you all's perspective. I've kind of been hearing things here and there about this case, and I never really just delve into it
Mm-hmm.
um,
Mm.
because I just can't, it's so much with all these cases going on as far as just the news in general. So some of them I just don't delve into. But this one was starting to get a little interesting, I guess, here and there. So I just want to hear you guys' perspective on it.
Oh, absolutely.
Um,
We've
yeah.
we've been talking about it for a couple of days now. And you know what? Go ahead and feel free to just hang out in the goo, as we call it on Clubhouse. I just really wanted to test that with you, but we'll continue the conversation and invite some people in because this has been something that we've had to kind of dive into theoretically because of the impact that it's going to have or it has had on the black community, especially in this climate with our new administration, our most recent administration. I don't want to say new because he's been there before, but because of the strong following that seems to be on the opposing side of black and I don't want to start doing this whole black and white issue, but opposing side of black people with rolling back DEI and EEOC and anything that we have benefited from, you kind of got to look at the social status of this as well, because now this, this was not some poor black kid or some homeless white guy. This was almost two equals except in color. That is really what separates them. And I have not gotten the entire picture on mom and dad's career choices. I think mom is a stay-at-home mom. His is our Karmello Anthony, and I'm not sure about the Metcalf family, what their dynamic is as far as their career choices. But unfortunately, like you were saying, Lorenzo, it what trauma have they had? We don't know, but no matter what that trauma, it was a choice that could be made, in my opinion, but on both parties. Metcalf could have said, "Man, I'm not touching you," and walked away, or Anthony could have said, "Man, I'm not gonna respond to you touching me," or not dare him to touch him and walk away. And both boys would have not been. We wouldn't have even known their names. known anything about them, he wouldn't be in hiding, because at this point, Anthony has had to relocate for his safety. Right now, it's on the news like
And
1 hour ago.
yeah, like I said, it's a man. It is a whole conversation to unpack, and I'm just hoping that, like I said, we can't change the circumstances that they're dealing with right now. And it's like I was just mentioning. It's like, what do we do moving forward at this point? How do we what things do we take a look at that that led up to this, so that we can get rid of those things, so that we don't have other incidents that follow what has just taken place. Because we can look at a whole lot of different things. Like we can look at the whole thug life mentality that kids tend to take on or to embrace. Like, you see, it's interesting that as a culture we see this lower level type of, I hate to say it, but this lower level type of Negro style behavior that takes place, that we embrace that. That's what we celebrate.
Mm-hmm.
We celebrate going to the liquor store every weekend. We celebrate, music that's degrading and vulgar and violent. We celebrate murder. Those are the things that we embrace and celebrate. But then, when we talk about,
I'm a savage.
yeah,
songs
when we
like that.
celebrate those things, right? And you got to think of, if we go back and we think of the mind of a child, right? When you have the mind of a child, your fantasy level is different. Things are kind of real, have a degree of reality in your mind.
Yeah.
It has a degree of reality in your mind. So when we allow our children to feed off of these type of things, or we feed, or something, in some cases feed our children these type of things.
Yeah.
And when these incidents play out in real life, it's like, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
What do we do? Like I said, I can't imagine what these parents are going through.
Right.
But if
both sets.
Right, both. If I embraced, or let's say if I taught my child racism, or I fed my child the thug life mentality, right? If that's what I fed them and they fell victim to what I taught them, I would think that in the back of my mind, I would have a degree of regret.
And responsibility. You are responsible for that.
Yeah, that's why you would have a degree of regret. I would think that I would have a degree of regret, because you put a seed in the mind of your child, or you fed your child something that played out in real life, and it led to a tragic end. So I would think that I would have a degree of regret afterwards.
The unfortunate thing about regret when you're parenting, you when you lay out the perfect template, what you feel is the perfect template. Okay, mom and dad are gonna work things out. We're gonna work things. We're gonna have our family, and we're gonna raise our sons, our children, to be good, law-abiding citizens. And then this happens. You can't make those decisions for them. You can make those decisions with them. And if you make those decisions with them and they still decide to go left when you're trying to tell them we need to go right, then the level of responsibility is still there. But that child, depending on their age, it was their decision to make that left turn versus the right one. Now, if you're just joining us, you're listening to the Relationshiping Show podcast with Lorenzo T. Hughes and LaDonna Raeh. We're also on Clubhouse, and we've got a few people there listening. And the lovely thing is we've got we have one comment that came in, but don't be scared, y'all. We took a little bit of a break from the Relationshiping Show because, it looks like we were doing our own shows, but we're back, and we want to make sure we keep this conversation as succinct as possible, because what what we're hearing in other rooms and other platforms is that this young man made a mistake. Okay. And rightfully so, he made a mistake. But I have had to literally respond because my reaction is, oh my God, somebody's son is dead. And he didn't have to be. And that's just where I stand. I don't care if he's black, white, or anything. That is someone's son, someone who went through 9 months or less of carrying him, nursing him, changing his diaper, planning for his school, then college, going to all of his games, supporting him, buying those sports cleats, because I know how much they cost. All of those things. Having them around family, looking and preparing for them to become a man or a woman, and then someone takes that away from you. Now, thank God I'm not giving the the final argument to the jury, because that just painted a picture that would pull anyone's heartstrings. But now we also have the Trayvon Martins of the world. Mother birthed him, carried him for 9 or less months, birthed him. He went and he's been around family. She had plans for his life. She's purchased, bought into his dreams. And all he did was run to the store and didn't come back. Let's go to Emmett Till. His mother sent him to Mississippi to be with family, to get him away from this crazy city called Chicago. He goes to Mississippi, has fun with his cousins, which we used to grow up with. We used to grow up with cousins. And because he talked with a lisp and supposedly whistled at a white woman who just recently died, by the way, she died a free life, having a free life when she transitioned. And because she said that he inappropriately gazed, looked, whistled, the entire mega of the past went and grabbed him out of that house and ended his life horribly. Mamie Till made sure that we saw the display of how her son was treated and how it was unnecessary. That was an open casket to see. But how far have we come? Not far. Because it's still happening.
Well, I'm gonna say it's still happening because I've said this before in other conversations, and we don't understand that young people are for war. And when you look at our generation, our culture of young people, they're for war. Where we failed to nurture that warrior instinct. That's why you see other predators able to come into our community, come into our homes and abuse us and mistreat us. And nothing gets done about that.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody gets stabbed in the chest or whatever. We got, you just talked about Emmett Till. You have a white culture that's known for protecting their women. They were willing to kill for their women.
Mm-hmm.
When do we show in history where we were killing people for our women, for violating our women?
Right.
Even if it really didn't happen. So this goes back to a conversation that I had before. When I asked the question, is racism a white issue or is it a black issue? It is a black issue. And that's not even to say that being racist is wrong. It's wrong because we don't know how to be racist. Meaning that
How so?
we don't know how to be proficient in our own race. We don't know how to protect our own race the way other races protect their race.
Mm-hmm.
They hire their own people.
Now, I got a question from the audience. They're asking, was there any proof or evidence that Karmello Anthony was influenced by thug life? Like, did he have tattoos? Now, I haven't been
I
able to
don't.
confirm any tattoos with him because he was so young. Well, that doesn't matter nowadays. I know no kid in my house is getting a tattoo till they get up out of here. But I'm not finding any evidence that he had tattoos.
Well, from what I gathered, like I said, it's really hard to dig up some of this stuff. Both of these kids were great students. They were star athletes. They were leaders within their school. So I don't believe he had any type of thug life
Affiliation.
affiliation. I don't believe that. If you're coming in where I was talking about that, it's just one of the things that feed into, you know, the culture of our young people that they tend to embrace. But I don't think in this particular case, I didn't see anything that gave the belief or insinuated that, you know, Mr. Anthony was associated with any type of thug life, anything.
Mm-hmm.
But I that's why I said this is a conversation that's tough to unpack because
So we have the trigger. She's got her hand raised, and I think
okay.
she's trying to come on stage. But I just want you to know, when I brought you on stage, you can bring yourself up. So if you want to come up, you can come back up stage, because I do see your hand raised, but I'm not sure if it was raised so that you could ask that question. But yeah, feel free to pull yourself back up to the stage, and let's see. Yep, the floor is yours once you do. Go ahead, Lorenzo.
Um yeah, I don't think he had any affiliation with I don't think I didn't find anything that showed that he had any affiliation with that, but I do believe he may have been dealing with something. I don't know if it was just that day, or I would like to think it. I don't want to think that it was with that team because if you are a star athlete, if they both were star athletes, and I believe they competed probably in the same district. When I was growing up, you were friends with all the if you were competitive, you were friends with all the competitive people in your arena of competition. We knew when I boxed as an amateur, I knew all the top boxers in my weight division. We talked. I go to their gyms and spar and learn because that's how you grow as an athlete. Man, you got to be friends with the people who are just as on your level of competition or above. So I believe to a degree that we've lost that level of communication in athletics where we can communicate with each other and compete with each other and be friends. At track meets, I was under everybody's tent when I ran track.
Trigger, for some reason, it's telling me that you've already been invited to this room. I don't know why that is. So let me see if I can fix that. Da, 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 da. Already been invited to this room. It keeps telling me that. Everyone. Yeah, let me see if I can bring David up. Hi, David. Welcome. There we go. Already been invited. Huh.
They're not muted, are they?
No, it says they've already been invited. And I think if you just speak, invite as a speaker. Yeah, user has already been invited. That's so weird. Sorry, David can't join.
As a speaker?
Yeah, that's what it says. She has her hand up. She's ready to talk. Technology, you got to love it. Clubhouse, why are you tripping? So let me see if I can fix that for you. She went out and came back in.
Okay.
Allow replays.
But
All right. Well, if you want, I can give you the phone number you can call that you'll be live on here. I'll go ahead and put that in the chat. And you call us
put
up.
the phone number in the chat.
And we'll take care of it.
And you guys can call, using the phone number. But I think, like I said, I think moving forward, if we have to figure out a system in where we teach our youth a different type or a different way of communicating across cultural lines. Like I mentioned before, it's okay if somebody doesn't want to be your friend. That's even as adults. We got to get used to that. If somebody don't want to be your friend, they don't want to serve you in a restaurant. There are restaurants everywhere. There's restaurants everywhere, and I think we can start to alleviate some of these confrontations that we deal with. Even when we're dealing with police officers that have no PR skills, no public relations skills.
Right.
You don't have to engage with them. Request a sergeant or another unit, because we see this all too often where we fall victims. We become victims of our own emotions, and it's starting to get a little played out. I hate it. I don't. That's one of the reasons I think that with the first lady that came on the news, you don't want to watch the news because it's so much bad news. It becomes almost toxic. And I would like to see us at this point. There's a lesson that we need to learn, that we have to learn, or we need to start teaching within our own community. Like I said before, we have to start understanding that we are a nation within a nation. And we have to start living that way. We are a nation within a nation, meaning that we have different philosophies, different ways of teaching. We have different historical experiences that we need to continue to teach ourselves. We tell different levels of stories.
You will be put into the live show shortly. In the meantime,
trying to bring somebody on.
Yeah, we got a caller.
Oh, okay. Yay.
Hey.
Hi.
It's the chicker again.
Thank you so much for calling. I'm sorry that the app did not work in our favor, but we always have another way to peel that banana. How are you this evening? And thank you so much for joining us.
I'm doing well. I just had a few comments about that situation. I've enjoyed you guys'
Thank you.
conversation around the topic. Well, I just think it's probably a deeper issue,
Yes.
that people don't know what actually went on. Okay, because these were both, known, famous, not famous, but popular
Right.
jock-ish, I guess, type guys. One was a black, one was a white. I believe, why would someone come with a knife? You know what I'm saying? I feel like there was probably some conversations between them over weeks or even months, and maybe he felt threatened. Maybe he felt like, he was possibly, now, I don't know. No one really knows. But with the climate of the administration and the white supremacist vibe is creeping back up, and these young kids, they are so impressionable, and if they have uncles or dads or whatever who's back on that, I don't know, maybe he was sending racial, threats to this young man, and he felt that threatened that he was like, well, I don't have a gun, but I'm going to go to this thing. I'm going to protect myself in case they try to pull something. And maybe they did use a threat. Now, was, the full violence of, taking this other boy's life necessary in a verbal altercation? Did he feel like they were going to try to jump him and he did feel like his life was in danger? There are so many issues that we just as the public don't know, but just looking at the situation, logic would tell you he felt threatened on multiple levels. And so I wouldn't just go straight to just being like an issue on necessarily the African American boy's part, as far as like him just having this, extra hatred toward white people just because of what the culture is going through right now.
Mm-hmm.
I think it was something personal. I think it was something underlying, and he
And,
truly felt threatened. And I mean, of course, I'm biased, right?
right.
But either way that the conversation goes, it's all speculation.
I agree with you.
At some point about what really happened around this event. But what can be seen, I think, very clearly is that he did feel very threatened.
And
Um, and so of course, there's a racial undertone, and there's a bigger issue at hand that we should have discussions about this. But I wouldn't just, for lack of a better term, throw the African American boy under the bus if
mhm,
he's just like a bad apple or something, or part of the bad black culture or whatever.
mhm.
And just like, I don't think we should take the narrative in that direction. I mean, everyone has their own opinion,
Yeah.
but
Right.
I just feel like it's just deeper things that we probably don't know that were surrounding this
And it
situation. Can you
always
hear what I'm
is.
saying?
Yeah, it
Was I talking
always
too much?
is. No, it's
Okay.
always a
Oh.
deeper issue.
Hello?
But what, can you hear us? Uh-oh. Hold
Hello,
on.
hello.
Hold
Are
on.
you there?
Can you hear us?
Not muted. Yeah, I'm
Okay.
sorry.
No, no.
Was I talking too long?
No, no,
No,
no.
no. I muted my phone so that I wouldn't get any feedback. I'm still listening.
You
We
know,
heard everything you said.
and I agree with what you were saying. There's more to unpack because, like I said, he because I still ask the question: why did he go under this other tent? What was there an intention behind it? I know they said I heard that it was raining and he was trying to get out of the rain. Now, did his team not have a tent? Was there another tent? Did he know anybody else on this team that was under the tent? There's just a lot of other unanswered questions that makes the whole conversation a little bit foggy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. It's
Yeah.
definitely like holes in the story, and you know, these are minors we're dealing with, so of course a
Hmm.
lot of the information is protected, right? So,
Right.
um, yeah, it's a tough, like you were saying. I give full credence to what you were saying in that regard. Is that this is a very complex situation,
It's
you
very
know.
complex, and I pray for the unrest that is unveiling to be minimized. You know what I'm saying? Because both sides
Yeah,
are on edge right now, and nothing is going to bring that young man back. Nothing at all. But I'm sure that when you sit and you think about what you could have done differently, it would have gone that way. And we almost need to teach our young people and some other people that are have their finger on the trigger or are depending or feeling more empowered with a weapon. Everybody needs to think about what to do instead of. You know what I'm saying? What to do
yeah.
instead of ahead
Crisis
of time.
de-escalation.
Right, right. It should be,
Yeah.
we should have absolutely crisis de escalation because one of the things that is always going to happen, somebody's always going to piss you off. Always. But what do you
Hmm.
do when they do? It's not what they did to you, it's how you respond that determines the outcome. I'll tell a little short episode that happened with me. I got pulled over by a white police officer maybe 6 or 7 months ago. And when he pulled me over for speeding. Now, I was just trying to get to my father because he was not feeling well. He couldn't breathe, and no nurse would come to see about him. So I'm in a hurry. But that doesn't
Oh
mean I
no.
should have been speeding, right? So I'm speeding. He makes a U turn, pulls up behind me, and says, "Give me your license and registration." Now, he started off nasty. You could hear the tone. But am I going to sit there and
Hmm.
massage the tone, or am I going to give him what he needs so I can get moving? Well, I said, "Officer, I do apologize. Why am I being pulled over?" And he said, "You were speeding." I said, "You know what? I didn't realize it. I was just trying to get to my father." He said, "Well, he shared with me that his father died of cancer last year." And I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that." But it escalated from there because then he started making comments to almost provoke me. And as he went back to he went back to his car and he ran my plates or whatever he needed to do. I had my dad on the phone. And I was like, Dad, don't worry. I got pulled over. I was going too fast. I'm not telling my father that it's an escalated situation because I don't want my father to worry. He can't do anything from where he is. Long story shorter, when the police officer came back, he said some really nasty things to me. And I told him, I said, why are you speaking to me in that manner? You are speaking to a grown adult woman. And he said, well, then act like it. Grow up. Now, I'm not even exaggerating. I still have the ticket he wrote me. It was not even a ticket. It was a warning. And you know why it was a warning? I said, okay, I understand that you are in control. I get that. I'm just trying to get to my father. Then he asked me, what's going on with your dad? Now, I could have been, angry black woman. None of your business. Look at how you talk to me. But instead, I told him what was going on with my dad. He said, well, I lost my father to cancer a year ago. You're being a good dog. Anyway, it de-escalated the situation because I was cooperating. Okay? I know that doesn't always happen, but let me just tell you, it took the hand of God for me to keep my mouth shut because I have a sharp tongue. We all do. And there's so many things I could have said, and there's so many ways that could have ended. Instead, it ended with him saying to me, well, what can I say? I'm Sicilian. We hate everyone. I could have responded to that. Instead, I said, but you don't hate me, do you? And he said, no, I don't. He shook my hand. Now, I don't care about him shaking my hand. What I care about is I got to go on my merry way to see about my father. And if we can think things through, even in those moments when they say those words, they hurt. They hurt. They get under our skin and we want to respond. We don't want to be a punk. We're tougher than that. Man, but the moment you have that attitude, it's going to go left. It just is. So we have to comply, get that badge number and write to the police chief. We have to write to the mayor of that city. We have to do what we need to do with due diligence because there is a paper trail that we have to create, not a trail to hell that we need to leave behind. Seriously. And on the ticket or the warning that he wrote to me, it said, I hope that your father is okay. You're being a good daughter. Whatever he said, I still have that ticket. I mean, that warning.
Amazing.
Yeah.
But you said something. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay.
Go ahead. We're listening.
Oh no, I was just gonna say I definitely understand those situations, and it is better to cooperate in some situations. Definitely better to cooperate than to escalate. Especially in those type of situations where no one else is around. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, as Black people, our lives are on the line in those situations, and it's crazy that it's like that, right? Mm-hmm. But it's just so nerve-wracking, and it's just we really do need some form of police reform, in that regard. I don't want to get off topic, but the control they have to just on their whim of emotionality just rain down whatever they want, over very petty offenses, if any, is just insane. It's so unchecked, and it really is a problem. And of course, we could say, well, just cooperate, but a lot of times that does not work. And a lot of times it's sad because they give a lot more grace to those who don't look like us, and so it's just very maddening. I had a situation like that recently. I was door dashing actually in a city I was unfamiliar with, and it was raining, and I ran a stop sign, and I realized, and 3 police cars pulled me over, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just so thankful to the one guy who was so compassionate and so sweet, and he was just trying to let me off with a warning. But the other cop came in with attitude, came in trying to accuse me of taking drugs. He was like, we might need to search your car. And just like I was just so grateful for the good guy who was there, who was just like, oh, she just, I had a DoorDash, I had food in my car. He was like, you just trying to make your little money and go on. He was just trying to write me a warning, and he did. But the other guy, I just know who was just the other guy. It just could have ended so badly. And that's the tension that exists, is that like we have to walk on eggshells, and a lot of times it doesn't matter what we do. And it's just so frustrating. But that's like a whole nother topic. So
No,
But
sorry, I
it's
didn't to
part
throw
of
it off.
it's part
But
of it, because I think maybe if we trusted the police a little bit more, maybe we wouldn't feel like we had to carry around weapons. We could just dial 911 because our weapons would be our telephones.
well, what makes it relevant to this conversation is what you mentioned earlier. You mentioned being easily provoked, and I think what not only law enforcement, but even the white culture understands that we're easily provoked, so they know what trigger words to use so that we can
hmm
respond a certain way, and they can respond and claim self-defense. They use these trigger words that seem all innocent, and then they claim, when we get upset about it or we're provoked by it, now we're acting violent, and now they can claim, well, I was scared for my life. They became
yeah.
violent, they became irate, just the defense words that they use after they do what it is that they have to do. But we're easily provoked, and I think I would love to see us uh eliminate that, try to deal with that some other type of way, and not allow them to provoke us the way that they do, because that's what I see
Mm.
in a lot of these incidents. Even with this one, touch me again. I don't know if he just put his finger on them
Right.
to be facetious about it. We don't know what happened, but we'll see if some new evidence will come out.
Developments come out,
Some new
yeah.
development. So we'll see.
Well, we need to keep an
Yeah,
eye on this. Go ahead.
I was just very interested to see his testimony. Like, if we get the court documents to actually like hear the testimony from the horse's mouth, and of course, maybe he's been coached a little bit, but I would take it generally as the truth of what could have happened, because I just don't think somebody where there was like no issues at all would be coming to a school event with a weapon.
Yeah.
So
Right.
it
Right.
seemed like it could be something else that was going on, but
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I totally agree.
Well, I tell you what, thank you so much for rocking with us. If you want, please go ahead and subscribe to our YouTube channel. If you go to YouTube and tell me your name again.
My name is Brittany,
Brittany.
but my nickname on everything is like the Trigger.
The
Trigger.
Oh, look at
So
you having grace for this young man or what happened, and you're called the Trigger.
so
I
what
know.
inspired that name, if I may ask? The Trigger.
So
Because I
I've
mean,
kind
it
of
could
been
be your
on
words. It could be your words. Could be what you quick with your
online.
tongue, like you pow.
So online rhetoric, I've kind of been jumping into that deep end of the ocean for a few years now,
Uh-huh.
like on places like Clubhouse and stuff, and talking about mostly like it always comes down to a lot of times the gender wars and things like that.
Ah.
And when I first got on here, like years ago, I was just so taken aback by the negative views by these African American men, like putting down their own women. It was just so rampant, and it really would make me angry. So I would get triggered, but I'm very good and observant
Uh-huh.
at observing other people and their mannerisms, and kind of already figuring out who they are by what they're saying.
Mm-hmm.
So
Right, right.
usually in a conversation, I would say something that would trigger them, and they would go from 0 to 100 coming back at me because I would be very triggering back to them, throwing what they said and trying to show them how silly it was or dumb it was. And they would they would go 0 to 100 like crazy,
Wow.
yelling sometimes for 30 minutes at a time, yelling just because I said something that triggered them. And
Mm-hmm.
I kind of do that on accident sometimes too.
Yeah.
I don't know, like I believe in Jesus. I feel like I get kind of knowings about people, and I might say something. I have no idea that that's something that's significant,
Mm.
but it'd be something that they really, really like just turned that trigger for them, and that just kind of happens on accident sometimes. So I just gave myself a few years ago. I gave myself the name the trigger. And everybody says it's pretty fitting.
I
What,
like it.
when's your
So
birthday?
yeah,
When's your birthday?
October 4th.
Okay, because I thought that you and I were birthday twins. That
Yeah.
sounds like my life.
Oh,
Those are fun. Those are fun.
yeah,
It's fun to do though. It is entertaining to do because
yeah,
I've done it. Yeah, yeah. It's entertaining. I
well,
like.
yeah.
I like it
It
though.
gets it
well,
gets entertaining for sure.
are you able to, would you like to subscribe to us?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Um,
So I'm
the
gonna,
LaDonna show, right?
yes, LaDonna Raeh. So Raeh.
Is it two N's?
Yes, LaDonna. And then Raeh.
Let me
And
see.
then show.
Oh yeah, LaDonna Ray Show,
Oh,
right?
yes, that's it. That's it. Oh my gosh, I got one subscriber.
Oh my goodness.
Don't worry, consistency is the key. It's
Yes, it
gonna
is.
get better. It's gonna get better. And you guys have I see your production is really good,
Thank you.
great quality, and so I really think you guys will blow up.
Well, thank
Just
Awesome. Thank
keep
you.
you.
going.
And I
Thank you.
so are you can we save your number cuz you called in on our conference line. Can we save your number to keep you posted?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure.
Because I talk a lot on Clubhouse. Actually, somebody else found me on Clubhouse and invited me on their podcast.
Nice.
The Anton Daniels show. I don't know if you ever heard of them, but I be on there sometimes on like Monday nights. Because she invited me, and whenever I'm on her, they say it's a good time. So
Okay, that sounds
it's
groovy. Groovy. Are you okay, that's Monday. So are you how far away from Chicago? Cuz we're out of Chicago.
I live in the Chicagoland area.
Okay, perfect. Perfect. Well, I'm going to keep you in the loop. I really appreciate you tapping in with us. I
And,
think this has been one of those topics that can get your hair raising a little bit.
and you said that was the Antoine Daniels show.
Anton Daniels show. Now, what he talks about, I don't agree with like 95% of what he talks about because
Oh my
he's
God,
often putting
95.
down black women.
Oh,
But
okay,
the
never
Oh, we got
mind.
to find
conversations they
him.
have, the conversations they have on the show are very interesting, and I like that they allow me to put my input in when I come on there. So they really do respect me and give me a platform. So I'm very grateful for that. But yeah, I don't really agree with a lot of what he talks about.
Where can it be
But
seen?
he's a
Is it
good
on
guy.
I
Clubhouse
think he's on
or
Clubhouse.
oh, it's on
It's on
Club?
YouTube.
Oh,
No,
it's
Oh,
on
he's
this
on
YouTube.
YouTube.
his channel is actually a YouTube.
Oh,
He's like a
Jesus.
millionaire guru guy. He actually like inspires people to make money and stuff like that. And like he even has like quarterly meetings in person, and I went to one. So I actually met him in person. He's actually like a really, really cool and nice guy. But like I said, I just don't agree with a lot of stuff he puts out.
So he puts women down.
Generally a lot, yeah. I
Mm.
mean, he tries to make it sound good, but yeah, he does.
Wow, finessing. Okay. So I'm putting this in the
Hmm.
text message to you so that I know why we spoke and I have the information.
Okay. Absolutely. And so, like, I mentioned that to say, like, if you guys want to invite me on for
Absolutely.
anything at any time, I'm willing to come on or whatever. I
Okay.
don't mind talking on anybody's
Well,
podcast. And you guys have sounds like you got a good one. So,
well, thank you very much. BTT, Brittany the Trigger. I
Trigger.
love it. All right. Well, I just sent you a text. It looks like you received it, and you'll see my area code. We're very close. So,
yes.
yeah, Chicago. Have you seen Sinners?
Yes.
Did
I
you
just
did you
saw
see
it.
our Chicago nod at the end? Buddy guy?
I was not sure of the reference. So
Oh
that's who it
yeah.
was about,
Yeah, that
Buddy
was
Guy.
Buddy Guy was he played was it Tommy? Was that his name?
I think it was Tommy.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
yeah,
Tommy.
yeah.
He was old Tommy with the scar on his face. Yeah. I don't want to say too much because somebody is on their way to see it
Oh,
tomorrow, I'm sure.
okay.
Yeah, because
All right.
they kept talking.
I
They
was act- uh, Go ahead.
I was just saying they kept talking about going back to Chicago. When we were in Chicago, and every time they said that, my heart jumped because it's a Chicago reference. And sometimes when you're sitting next to people that aren't from here, you're just so proud of that because you are Chicago, and yeah,
Mhm.
they're just getting to know Chicago, so it's kind of cool.
Yeah, I actually want to go see it again. It was so good, and yeah, like I just kind of, I love Chicago. I'm in love with Chicago. I'm always gonna live here if I can because it's just the dopest city. Like
Yeah.
outside of the violence and stuff, but
Right. I mean, there's violence
um,
everywhere, but
there's
because
violence everywhere.
we're a large
There's
city, so
violence.
Mm-hmm.
there's gonna be more violence. I mean, it's a large city, and there's a lot of the rent is too high, so there's
Yeah.
gonna be more
Yeah,
violence.
we got
There's a
like
lot of
3
problems.
million people up in this
Right.
Yes.
motherfucker.
For
I had this
sure.
one lady who moved here from Washington when I did Uber. She was like, "Oh yeah, I love Chicago. I don't mind dodging bullets going to Washington
Oh
because
my goodness,
Washington was worse."
it's
She
not
said
that
Washington
bad.
was worse. So
Why?
she said she likes Chicago still. Chicago's
Ah,
better than Washington. That's what she said. So,
First of all,
and she
I
was a
have.
Caucasian lady.
Oh boy, she
oh
said that she wanted to make you feel good.
God.
No, I've never even dealt with that. I know it
Me
exists,
either.
and I never dodged a bullet, but I know the things that happen here. I'm not oblivious to it. I pay attention to it, and there's certain code, okay? There's certain code that keeps you safe, and being covered by much prayer helps as well. So, but Chicago,
Hey,
every time I go out of town, I tell somebody, "Where are you from?" And I go, "Chicago." They go, "Ooh." It's like,
look,
calm down, homie.
see,
We
Mhm.
got the
and
best sky
Right.
line.
like I tell people,
It's not that bad.
if you ain't, playing around with drugs, you ain't in no love triangle, and you probably you're gonna avoid some of them that gunfire.
Pretty much. Pretty much.
Yeah. Just stay prayed up and keep to yourself.
That's
Like,
right. That's right. All right.
yeah.
The trigger. We're gonna see you next time on the Relationshiping Show with LaDonna Raeh and Lorenzo T.
Yes,
Hughes.
thanks again.
And make
Woo!
sure you guys,
All
if you missed the beginning of this show, we did talk about how our week went last week. There was some highlights, and then we went into the topic. So chime in, continue to share the show and comment because that will be seen. Also, it doesn't end here; it keeps going, and we'll see you next time on the Relationshiping Show.
Yes, indeed, and maybe we'll talk about sinners next time.
Yeah, why not? Because that
Yes.
was something to see. All right, bye bye for now,
right.
and subscribe to the YouTube channel. You're not.
Are you still looking at me?
It always ends with you're not.